So you begin to understand how a man or a woman living in a particular environment where the needs of that area, right, has people in a state of desperation. It would be very difficult for that person to isolate themselves, right, and do something. I remember once I went to a lecture given by a psychiatrist in the university, and he was doing all the people that went to England, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, right? And then he started doing studies as to how much went mad, how much got broken, you know what I mean, and things like that. And they get advice, you know, and what kind of treatment they could get and things like that. So when he was finished, I went across and I introduced myself. And I said, I want to ask you a question. I say, a whole heap of people went abroad. Some of them come back broken. Some of them stayed there broken and finished their lives. I said, but you ain't talk about the supermen. He said, what supermen? I said, the fellas who went there and with all the adversity, learn to body beat everything and come out, and as every time they body beat something, they get stronger and stronger and stronger until they become thinkers and doers, but not in the way that other people think, you know. In other words, they have a control on their life. They become supermen. And he said to me, well, we were not interested in that. And I said, how can you be a psychiatrist and not be interested in making people supermen? I would have taught you to study those people, to find out what they did, and then try to introduce it into a curriculum so that you could get more supermen in your society. He said, yeah, but they didn't give us the thing to do that. You know?
The funding and
so the funding was how to fail. The funding was not to succeed.
Yes.
And I found that really, really strange.
Yeah.
Right?
You know,
if you're in the army and you're running a mile with a pack at this distance, and the fellow say, well, if you continue doing that, you know, we're going to get retail bus, you know, because we know the other army could do it in 2/3 of the time, and they're going to be there 10 minutes before us or an hour before us, and they'll tear us to pieces when we reach. So we had to find a way to find what to eat, get them fellas to eat, what kind of training to get them to do in order to make them hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole thing is that our army must be superior to your army for us to be the superpower.
So therefore we begin to think of making people more efficient, more superior, right? If you go to an ordinary school, they teach you how to pass an exam and how to get a good job. If they send you to an elite school, they teach you how to rule. They teach you how to become amoral. How do they teach you to become amoral? They will give you a subject that is very highly controversial. So, all right, who for abortion? Who against abortion? It's all right, you against abortion, you go up there and talk about it. You for abortion, you go up and think about it. And you sit back down. And when you sit back down, you say, Jude, go and argue for abortion. You say, but I don't believe in it. I say, no, that's not the point. You take yourself and go out there and put yourself inside there and argue for abortion. In other words, disconnect yourself from your emotions.
Right.
Your emotions must be under control. So they have all kinds of techniques for teaching you how to bring your mind under control, how to bring your emotions under control. And it is a pre-selected thing that whenever you leave there and you step out, the only place you're going is into a big job where you have control of things and people.
Right.
So you have to train you how to do that.
So in order to qualify, I should say, for that kind of leadership role, you can't be focused on self or how I feel or what my opinion is.
Under certain circumstances, no.
Right.
If you're running a company
and
they tell you have to send everybody home, you can't sit down and start thinking about
where.
If you call your partner and say, well, boy, I have to do that and I have no choice. That's for the good of the company. The company takes precedent over everything else. You know? You have a case right now in Trinidad. We're shutting down the oil field. Right? And everybody's saying, oh, you could do that. So much people out of job. That's not the point. We're losing money. You shut it down.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who don't like it, lump it.
Yeah.
And besides that, we're losing money, so we will put more money on that. We're subsidizing the gas for so long.
Yeah.
We'll take out some of the subsidy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I understand the logic behind it.
So you see, we start talking about water and the explicit use of water in order to store spiritual energy and that it is the key to life. And if you put sunlight into the water, you get life. And then the fact that what is your ego? Your ego is not you. It is all the brainwashing that they give you in order to create. We have the same idea about what this reality is. It is only when you deal with people who are outside that reality that you begin to understand that you're in a reality. But if everybody in the same reality, nobody ever thinks that they're in a reality that is very special to them.
All right. Yeah, I hear you.
Right?
Okay.
So when you go to mourn, the thing that you're doing is that you're attempting to take the person outside the reality. How are you going to introduce them to the leaders inside there, the beings that guide them, and then the beings that rule those beings, and then finally God, if you're lucky. And then when you say God talking to me, you say, God must be a really, any voice that you hear in your head is God. It could be something contacting you with a little more intelligence than you trying to tell you you're doing stupidness. Right? That doesn't make it God, it makes it a superior being. So you have another definition now. Not to get carried away with your own arrogance and think that
you reached God already.
you reach God already.
Yeah.
Right? You can't even understand what's going on in this planet, much less the solar system, much less the galaxy,
Or
much
yourself.
less the universe, much less all the other universes, and yourself, but God talking to you.
Yeah.
Right?
You that's important.
I'm going to tell you all what to do. God will speak to me, and then you all have to follow me to the letter. Right? So we can go from one extreme to the next. Because somehow or the other, we don't want to do the work to advance spiritually step by step.
All right. So let's say your first time out taking self out of self, and you went on that journey, and you met one of God's representatives, a superior being, who guides you to the next level, and so forth, until you get to a place where you can actually be in the presence of God. Maybe not talk to him directly, but experience the light a little bit. Yeah? Yeah?
You use a really, really strange phrase there.
Experience.
Till you could get to where you could experience the light.
Yeah. What's strange about that?
There's a chapter in the Bible that says, somebody asked Jesus about, getting there. And he says, I am the way. I am the life. I am the
Light.
light.
Yeah.
No man comes to the Father
Except by me.
except through me.
Through me. Yeah.
What did he mean?
You had to pass through the light before you could see God.
You know what most people interpret to mean? That Jesus standing up there and you had to walk through him, or he had to hold your hand and drag you. When that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that once you have experienced the light, which is this close to the source, right? And I chose my words very carefully. Then it gives you a greater understanding of the role that you're playing here in this little infinitesimal amount of what we call time.
Yes.
Right? So he wasn't saying worship me. He was saying try and find the light. But it's interesting how everybody say, well, all I have to do is to call Jesus and he good. I say, boy, well, you can't do that. Well, you can't do that. Jesus might just get up and he's drinking a little cup of coffee and a million people come to him. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And he said, boy, sorry I went down there and tried to help them fellas, I tried to show them how to do the thing themselves.
Right. Basically he came as an example.
Yes.
Right? So
the whole act of mourning is to get out of yourself and begin to experience higher levels of spirituality that allows you to become more efficient in the world that you're in and more caring
Right.
Because when you come back and you walk outside and you look at a tree and you realize that tree shining, boy, that tree have a glow around it, I never noticed that.
Yeah, all your perceptions change.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember once I was working in Barataria, in Barataria Senior Comprehensive, and I was standing outside with a guy. And somebody came and they wanted to build a house. And they started cutting down a mango tree. The only thing is that the mango tree was full of fruit. And I tell him, I say, you could hear that mango tree screaming. Normally it mightn't have screaming, I might just give up and die. But it's screaming. I say, you know why it's screaming? It's screaming because it have young ones. And they don't want the young ones to die. I say, the fellow who cutting down that tree, blight for a long, long time. He said, may I ask you to say some funny things? I said, no. If you stand up here and you're just blank, you'll feel it.
Right.
He said, I can't feel that.
But I know that the older folks is saying never cut down a tree that is bearing fruit.
Yeah.
Never. You wait until it done bear,
Yeah.
and then. But while it's bearing fruit, you don't cut it down. I never knew why.
That is because you alive, that alive, and if you have empathy, you will know not to do it.
There's like somebody who's going to kill a pregnant woman.
Yes. Which is worse than killing an ordinary woman, because you're doubling up on life.
Yeah.
So what the morning thing does is that it opens you into that world that is where you come from. If I cut you off from that world, I've cut you off from your individual source of power.
Yes.
If I then have control on it, I could tell you, you go into hell or you go into heaven. I have never experienced hell. I have never experienced heaven. The only thing I walking around is a perpetual fear. My mother was in a old people home up the road, and I went there one day, a Sunday. I have about 8 people sitting in the living room, and all of them reading. What are they reading?
The Bible.
So I was in one of my wicked days. So I said, wee boy, everybody reading the Bible. I say, you figure if you read a few words out of there, all these sins that you do for your life, God will say, she read the Bible, or he read the Bible just before he comes, so we'll send them to heaven. I say, don't work so, Of course, everybody get vexed. But I was trying to tell them that is not how you do it. You might do it by being kind to the person next to you. Not by sitting down and reading words that you don't understand in any case. And then the other thing about it is that we have contradictions. If you take the biblical text, you have contradictions in the text that we don't bother to look at it. We just take it as it is. And so unless somebody comes along and has the ability to help you free your spirit and get outside your brainwashing and put you into that world so that you have a direct contact with that world. Right? So sometimes after that, you're praying for something, and boom, somebody appear in your head and they say, we hear in your prayer, Don't worry about it. You're bound to pray. We hear about it, we're going to fix it. And right away, you are absolutely sure that it has been fixed. And you get up and you go about your business. Or you want to do something, or you want a job, and you go out there and you say what you have to say. And a little voice comes and says, all right, tomorrow or day after, somebody will come and see you, and you'll get the job that you want. Or wait a week or two and we'll send this, because sometimes they have to manipulate the universe in order for you to get there without destroying anybody else.
Right, so there is your access, having access to the divine or the universal consciousness. You are now able to make a plea, a personal plea, and said, this is what I would like.
Yes. In other words, you can work towards achieving your dreams.
Right. And once they're in agreement with your plea, they will say, well, yes. They will give you the answer and say, well.
Sometimes they mightn't be in agreement, but they might say, that's what you want, we will help you, but we're trying to tell you that is not what you should get. Because sometimes they have to whip you for you to learn a lesson or two. But the point I am making is that is what mourning does. Mourning is designed to put you in contact with your ancestors, with that accumulated wisdom that is inside your DNA, not from an outside place.
Right.
The people who run this world, they're very clever.
Right.
If you see a picture of Jesus in the 2nd century on our Roman coin, you see a black guy with a big mop of hair.
Afro.
Afro.
Yeah.
If you go into church now, you see a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Cesse Borgia.
When you get a little bit wiser and you do a little bit, you learn that was painted by Michelangelo in the 15th or 16th century. It has nothing to do with reality. So somebody went and altered all your reality
For control, yeah.
to put you in a point where you feel inferior.
Because at one point they wanted the world to believe that God and everything holy was white.
They still want you to believe that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when they have Egypt,
Yeah.
and Egypt is supposed to have slaves, all the Egyptians supposed to be black.
Yeah.
All the servants are black, but the Pharaoh white.
Yeah.
So you begin to understand that you have a constant ponging on you. And that one little ceremony, if handled well, helps to take you out of that cesspit that you're in there all the time.
Introduce you to the truth.
Introduce you to some of the truth.
Some of it, yes.
You know, I was reading an article last night about the Sumerians in South America and the writings that they left all through South America. Reading about the massive buildings that they have all through North America, you don't hear nothing about. In the Grand Canyon, there's a whole underground city that is Egyptian, and they close it off and they pretend that it doesn't exist. So you have a history that is not a history. I have to go and get a book because they're saying that the history that you've been told in North America is wrong. What do you mean by that? They say, well, it had black Indians that were in America, and they take them and they carry them out and bring them back on a boat and bring them back as slaves.
I remember years ago, Carnival time, there was this gentleman in San Fernando who was making a big fuss about black Indians, and he was portraying this black Indian mass. And everybody said, well, you mad, Indians not black. It had no black Indians, and whatever, they kind of, and stuff like that. And he was very adamant, and he said, I have the history to prove it, and that kind of thing. But nobody would believe him, because, you know, everybody had been conditioned that can't be true. But now you're actually proving him right.
So,
Yeah.
listen to this.
Yeah.
An Italian guy called Columbus find out that it have islands on the other side of the sea.
Down this way.
Yeah, so he decided that he want to come here.
Yeah.
So he go to the king and queen, and they say, all right, they gave him 3 little ships, and they say, go and check it out. Right? So when he ready, he went and he get a pilot who is a Moroccan.
One of the Moors.
One of the Moors. And he said, I want you to guide me to where these islands are.
Yeah.
So they go in towards the islands. This is what is in the log, in the log of the Santa Maria. And it says, he reached the Sargasso Sea. And he said, he went back and said, give me my men in 3 days. You know, give the whole conversation. So he goes to the Moor. And the Moor says, oh, this is the Sargasso Sea. It's the center of the Atlantic. Right? We will pass through it. It will take so much. And then from there to Hispaniola, it's 3 days. So God said, fellas, it's all right. When we pass this, it's another 3 days and we're in business. So 3 days later, they reach in Hispaniola. The guy carry him to a particular bay. And as they coming in, the chiefs and them come down to meet them. Columbus see that the chief have a spear and the tip is made out of iron. And he asks the guy, he says, well, how come them fellas have tips of iron? So they tell them more. He say, ask him where they get that from. You hear the implication?
Yes, that they couldn't possibly do it themselves.
No, you ain't get the implication yet. He tell them more, ask him.
Yeah.
So the only way that the more could ask him is if he spoke the same language as this guy.
That's right. Oh, yeah, yes.
You understand?
So he asked
the chief.
Yeah.
He said, where all they get these spears from? And the fella say, we get that from the traders who come from Nigeria. They trade with us all the time. They bring that, we give them gold, we give them this, and they go back and forth and things like that. And they converse.
Right.
Now, nobody ever tells you that at all.
So that means that the people from the African continent, people of African ancestry, traveled to this world before.
Long before.
Columbus.
Long before.
They were trading.
The Phoenicians were traveling all to South America and all of that. And they have records. I just see a book in one of a magazine I'm reading there. Right? The Sumerians in South America, where they left records. Just as how in North America you had these people, they have a copper mine in North America, where they take out millions of tons of copper. And you see in the way there's a bunch of fellas running away, pulling spears.
Yeah.
I think it's the Ojibwe Indians who had a whole big nation, and they had articles of how they rule.
Yeah, they had a constitution.
They had a constitution from which the white Americans copied and made
The Constitution of America.
the Constitution of America. The only thing is that the council that they had that used to do that
was grandmother.
was made up of grandmothers.
I think I heard that before somewhere. Yeah.
Because they say if you have grandmothers, people who make children and then make more children, their idea of wanting to go to war or not go to war or how to treat other people starts from a point of compassion.
I go and send my son and my grandson to dead just so. It had to be serious. Yeah.
So you begin to understand. I had a book and I was looking for it. I know it's somewhere in my shelf, which was instructions that a guy wrote in Barbados on how to break the male slaves when they come.
That the Willie Lynch letters.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Willie Lynch letters.
Yeah.
I can't find it. I know I have it somewhere about who. It is a nasty book.
Yeah.
And then you begin to realize that if you disconnect a race of people from their traditions, they lose their power. And all the politicians sitting down up there and saying, oh, we can't understand why everybody in Laventille getting on like that. It's because they have no traditions.
Right.
Now, you have to understand the significance of doing these rituals and what these rituals do. You have a gentleman in this town called Mr. Badis Sagan Maraj, right? And he come and he went and tell the Indians, he say, this thing that all you have is powerful. We shouldn't give it up. We should think it. I admire him that he Indianized or Hinduized the Indians. Because he brought them back to the tradition.
He championed the cause.
He brought them back to the seat of spiritual power.
Yes.
I mightn't agree with you that he figured that he had to climb on other people to do it. He don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes people in their emotions have figured out how to denigrate these people in order to uplift these. That's not so. If you're uplifting somebody, uplift them. The rest will take care of itself. Right? But in our case, most of the time they broke out everything that we had and they demonized it.
Yeah.
And they left you with nothing. And they hand you a book and they say, there's the book. But they ain't hand you the secrets to the book.
The codex.
They ain't hand you the codes.
Yeah.
So they ain't hand you the codes. So you don't know what it is you're reading.
Well, thank God that you could go to moon and your guides could give you.
You could re-establish.
Yes.
I go to a luncheon one day. I ain't call names as who lunch it was, I think. But I go to sit down, and exactly opposite to me is a born-again pastor. And he says to me, have you been saved? Have you been washed in the blood of Jesus? And I said, I beg your pardon? He says, have you been washed in the blood of Jesus? So I looked at him, and I said, I assume that you're asking me that question because you have the ability to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask me that. He says, yes, I am a pastor and I do that, so and so and so. I say, good. I will ask you 3 questions, and if you answer them, right, I will come and let you wash me in the blood of Jesus. My brother-in-law who knows me, who's sitting next to me, he says, leave that alone. He said, no, I got to ask him. I say, so what's the manual that is used to save people? He said, the Bible. I said, so you're an expert in the Bible? He says, yeah. I said, good. I say, all right. I'll ask you 3 questions out of the first chapter of Genesis. And if you answer me them, I'll come and let you wash me. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. I say, it says, and God said, let us make man. I say, what was the name of God who was doing that? He said, God, don't you have one God? I say, yes, but he have many names, many attributes. And when he's doing a certain thing, that is the attribute that is used, so that is the name that is used. He said, that is true. I said, so what was the name? He says, that's easy, Jehovah. I says, no, it isn't. It says, let us. And Jehovah is singular. So he didn't watch me and he started fidgeting. I says, you want me to help you? I said, the word is Elohim. It is the Elohim. He said, oh yes, Elohim, Elohim. I said, what's so special about Elohim? He said, what do you mean? I said, I know you don't know, so I'll enlighten you. I say, Elohim in Hebrew is spelled Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem. Right? I say, Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod is Elohai. When you add the mem closes to show that it is an enclosed vessel, and it becomes masculine. So in order for God to create anything, it had to be first feminine and be impregnated by the masculine principle. So you said, you could call them the fire spirits of creativity, if you want to call them that. So you watch me. I said, I know you don't know nothing about that. I said, now let me ask you another question. How much time is Elohim mentioned in the first verse? First chapter.
That's a hard question for anybody.
I say no. It have to be a certain amount. I say because the fellows who write that book knew what they were writing, so it had to fit the truth.
I'll make a guess. 26.
No. 32 times.
32 times.
So I say I could go and count it when you go home. I said, but I'll ask you a question, another question. I said, why 32? I say, everything that they do does have a reason. Why 32? Why not 30, 28, 45? You know? You don't know. I say, it seems that you don't know nothing. I say, all right. I say, it's mentioned 32 times because on the tree of life, which exists in the garden, you have 10 sephirots and 22 pathways. And each pathway is represented by a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So you watch me blank. I say, you don't know nothing about that. I say, for a man who talking about using a manual and you don't know no answer to the first chapter, how you gonna save me?